And Taryn, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. We have about an hour. I've got some questions, but we will leave some time for the audience. So if you have questions, just please put your hand up, and towards the end, I'll make sure I get to them as many as possible. Just for an idea, show of hands, how many of you are part of Film Circuit? Oh, good number. And how many of you have been with Film Circuit prior to 2010? I probably met you. That's when I was there running it. So welcome back. Nice to see you. Well, thank you all for being here. Are you having a good festival so far? Yeah. Amazing lineup this year. Incredible. And it's so nice to see so many people back. Okay, we're just going to jump right in. So I have questions for both of you, and then I have a couple questions for each of you. What do you think, we're going to dive right into this, what do you think is the importance of film festivals versus SVOD? And if you're not entirely, that's subscription video on demand, SVOD. Do you still think film festivals are the best place for audience to discover new talent, and for filmmakers, producers, and distributors to gauge the strength of their film based on that audience reaction? And I was going to say, you know, it wasn't that long ago that Danny Boyle won the Audience Choice Award for Slumdog Millionaire, which completely changed the course of that film that went on to win Oscars. And then I looked it up and realized that was in 2008. So it was a little while ago.
But you know the one, so last year, all is quiet on the Western Front. So the original plan, little backstory, the original plan, Netflix was just going to put it on their platform. There was no intention for Netflix to ever do a film release. And it was a programmer at TIFF, Jane, who said this film, I mean, she's the tastemaker. She brought Slumdog Millionaire. But, you know, she said this film is made by an incredible filmmaker and it should be seen. And because it had I won at TIFF, it went on a whole path for the Oscars. So my answer would be absolutely, film festivals are a vital part of a film's journey. And it's so important for that exposure for all the reasons that you say, but on top of it, it is the one place that you'll take a chance on a film you wouldn't have necessarily seen before. We go back to the true in-person recommendation. It's not algorithms, it's really people that you get to know, you get to meet, and they recommend something, and you take a chance, and it's everywhere. It's the small communities, it's the larger communities, and for me, it's so exciting to just see people who have a passion for cinema want to come out and be together to experience just cinema is a language. So the short answer, yes, film festival is important.
And I think the press you get out of a film festival is unparalleled. And so from a studio perspective, and when we work with our partners of not just what films we're going to show, but what films are in festivals, the kind of press that you can get out of a festival and the word of mouth and even just national coverage, whether it be in Canada or in the US, is like something you can't buy that kind of press anymore. Especially considering everything has gone so digital in terms of marketing and everything is so specific. There's a lot of, the way films are marketed now are so specific because every studio's worrying about budgets and worrying about how they're spending their money, so their marketing has become very targeted. So unless you're in that target group, you're likely not getting, that sort of peripheral recommendation anymore. And festivals are exactly that, like Fran said. You get, your friends together, or like peers, people you meet at a festival, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden you're talking about these films that you're not getting actually marketed to by the studios or the filmmakers that are making them, because it's just, that's not the way that marketing happens anymore. So I think that the word of mouth and the press that you get from a festival is unparalleled.
Yeah. Also, I find, or at least in my experience, filmmakers are so supportive of other filmmakers. Mm-hmm. So when someone's in town, they're there for their film, but then they want to see not just their friends, they want to see other films. And you can't buy marketing of someone like a Vigo going to see a film and then tweeting out being like...
Yeah, like that photo at TIFF of Vigo sitting in the aisle watching a TIFF film. You can't buy that.
Exactly.
There's no other way to do that except... Yeah. And it's really lovely to see at festivals when you do have filmmakers. And this year was a great year for TIFF in a lot of ways, and it was an interesting year in others just because talent couldn't come. But the talent that was able to come was so supportive Absolutely. Of other people's projects. You had multiple talent walking red carpets that they have nothing to do with just to give somebody else some press out of it.
Yeah. I mean, Ethan Hawke took a bus after 3 flights were canceled to come. And then, like, you couldn't have scripted what he said about supporting TIFF and Cameron and audiences and filmmakers. I'm like, you can't buy that. Okay, so as we all know, the window between film releasing theatrically and going to SVOD continues to give grief to those in exhibition. That release window continues to shrink. Screens at home are getting bigger, and it's cheaper to stay at home, rent food, or not rent food.
Rent
food.
I'm just going to borrow that fry.
I'll give it back.
But that said, as I'm sure we can all attest, nothing will replace watching a comedy or a thriller with a live audience, or seeing films like Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water that was made to be seen on a massive screen, either on IMAX or Ultra AVX or 3D. So what is working to bring audiences back to theaters?
A couple things. I mean, at least at Cineplex, we've got, the way that we program film is a little bit more specific to the communities in which we're serving. So things like international product, event cinema, even Taylor Swift. We're programming film slightly differently, to be honest. But really, it is about that shared experience. There's nothing like going, and I feel like this is a broken record for a room full of film lovers, but there's nothing like going to a cinema and watching a film together. But it's those premium experiences and experiences you can't replicate at home that's bringing people back. Avatar was a great example of it. In our first 2 weeks of Avatar, 80% of the attendance was in a premium experience. And that doesn't include VIP. So that we're talking AVX or IMAX and 3D. And that was it. 80% of the audience went and watched it in one of those formats. At the very beginning, James Cameron was like, it can only be shown in 3D. Although then that sort of, he caved eventually once we got closer to the release. So we did have some 2D shows. And obviously, same like in a premium, but in 2D. But people were still seeking out that experience that they can't replicate at home. So that's the number one thing I think that people are coming back to the cinema for, is an experience that you can't have at home. What's unfortunate in the way that the world is going is it's that middle range film that is really suffering. So we've got the Avatars of the world, you've got the Avengers of the world, Top Guns, all of those. People are going to come to the theater to watch those because they don't want spoilers, so they want to see them before anybody else. That's the true reason why a Marvel fan goes on a Thursday night before the movie even opens. So you want to see it before anybody else and chat about it. So those films are fine because those are event films. The smaller films we're actually seeing also have a following because you love a filmmaker, you love a film, you love an actor, you love a topic. So those smaller films are totally fine. It's that mid-range where people are like, well, do I have to go to the theater to watch that? Or can I just wait until I go home? So it's really finding reasons for them to come back, whether it be offers, whether it be surprise and delights in theater,
What's a surprise and delight in a theater?
Oh, like you'll get like a comic book, or you'll get like concessions.
That's not what I was thinking.
Karen,
Like I don't know what you think it is. I'll be sure to
Just
see.
extra popcorn.
Well, I don't know what you're doing at the theater, but it's things like that though. It's concession offers, it's extra scene points, it's things like that again we're just incentivizing you to come into the theater or making it an event and creating things that you want to come to the theater for. The Taylor Swift Eras tour on screen is more successful than I think any of us, especially me, could have possibly imagined. We've already got over $5 million in sales for 4 weekends. Exactly, like just for Cineplex. And it's like 47, I think it's 46 million in the US for AMC that is playing it. They obviously have a much more a much bigger footprint than we do, and they're distributing it in the US. So they're rolling other distributors or other exhibitors into that. But that's what we're doing to get people to come back to the theater, is finding things that you can't watch Taylor Swift at home. It's not even available. So whereas waiting for a film, we just try to get you to come and watch it earlier in the life cycle.
Yeah. I am going to go back to a couple in a second, but
For sure.
To Taylor Swift.
Yeah, to Taylor Swift
not
specifically.
Taylor Swift, but that's
Playing at Sudbury, October 13th. It's
sold out.
Actually, it's funny. We all thought that the October 13th one would sell out the first because it's her lucky number, and Taylor Swift is like, there's so many like Easter eggs and all these things about like how you have to like, just her fans are kind of insane in my opinion. But anyways, but the October 13th ones sold out immediately. But we added more shows, so there's still tickets available if you need to go on October 13th. Yeah, exactly.
You were worried. I know you were worried.
I know this audience was really worried about that.
Fran, how has the importance of film festivals evolved in the last 5 years, and maybe specifically for Telefilm? Pre-pandemic to being virtual to now being hybrid for some festivals that are still offering it, to completely being back in person. What do you, from Telefilm's point of view?
What was interesting is, so Telefilm administered a lot of COVID emergency funding, and we worked really closely with the film festivals in particular. We set up webinars even for festivals to share with festivals, how were they going online, what does that look like? And what, for me, the best part of what the pandemic did is it actually brought a lot more of the film festivals together. Because a long time, we're a big spread out country, and we kind of started grouping like with like so that you could realize you're not alone. Because the biggest thing I think they all felt was, I'm alone, I don't know how to do this, I don't know what platforms to use, how to engage. So I think one, it was just a real sense of cross-Canada community, even with the Quebec festivals, which I really was inspired by to see that level of sharing. And I think the other that I heard was they actually reached community that they'd never reached before. And there are people that can't get into whatever city or town it is, or they were immunocompromised, or there were so many reasons that it actually allowed a bigger audience to develop around festivals. And I think those people have stuck with the festival. Even if some of the festivals have gone back to in-person, they found ways to stay connected with those community members along the way, or they've set up, screenings that are outside of the festival that maybe have a little less of the kind of pressure of being amongst too many people. And I've always been a big, fan. So part of what I do is I administer the program that supports the film festivals across Canada. I think Karen and I, we've all been at a lot of festivals, but there's nothing better than being at a festival like this one, where it's true audience coming in and seeing films. It's not about buying films. It's about just sitting and watching in a dark place all together, not with a surprise and delight that Karen talked about. Well, maybe, I don't know. I haven't been in Sudbury long enough to know how you all roll. I don't know. But I think what we brought out of it was that, and I think now our role at Telefilm is to continue to stabilize festivals, because the other part, and maybe we'll get to it later, but I think the bigger challenge we hear is space, cinemas are disappearing. It costs a lot of money. We can't keep staff. So we've been working hard to increase the contributions. We can't find it. We think we find it's 140 festivals across Canada, and I think there's more than 200 film festivals across Canada. But we need them. We need people like you that care, that sustain our creators. So I think that's, I'm sure I have other things to say, Karen, but it'll happen later.
So going back to what we were talking about earlier about just getting people back into theaters, how important is it to have people like James Cameron and Tom Cruise and that, who, to your point, demand that the film be seen in a certain way, but in a theater first before it gets released? But rightfully so. I mean, they spend millions of dollars making these films to be seen in a massive screen before being on SVOD or Blu-ray. Do you think their public messaging helped? And then on a side note to that, because that's amazing, and I saw Maverick 4 times in the theater, diehard Top Gun fan. But then it's like the flip side of that is the importance of film circuits, where it's like you're not going to program those middle and independent films for major releases because they're just not going to make enough money for you versus the Avatars and Mavericks. So on that flip side, all the more important why we have these film circuit communities all across the country, and we used to have the world, that rent the theater. I always loved the model when I worked there. It's like you tell the distributor that you're the exhibitor, and you tell the exhibitor that you're the distributor, and you're neither, but you are both for that one night. So can you talk about the importance of that kind of very big voices in the room, but then also the fact that it's equally important to be able to, and Ellis and Cineplex, sorry, I will let you talk, have always been such massive supporters of film circuit and independent cinema and community building, and I think it's really speaks to the success of why Film Circuit was able to grow in such a short period of time with the help of Telefilm. When I started there, Telefilm funded Film Circuit for 3 years to grow a minimum of 40 groups a year over the course of the 3 years. And we went from, I think it was 40 to over 200. And it was huge. And I know we're less now, but, you are less now. I'm no longer part of Film Circuit. But that importance of that community building is still very, very relevant.
For sure, yeah. I think for beginning part of your question of like the talent driven of watch it in a theater, I think is very important. Oppenheimer was a great example of it this past summer. Of Christopher Nolan creating this film, and it wasn't, I mean, obviously it's about the money, let's be serious. Universal sunk a ton of money into that film, and gave him complete free reign and stole him from WB and was like, we can give you things that WB can't. And so it was complicated for a lot of different reasons, but not just of the money and the studio nonsense of it all. He also made this film, and a lot of his films are like that, of these like sort of passion projects about topics or about just, the films that he makes are sort of a labor of love, and him and his wife work on all of his films together. And so I understand from his perspective of wanting it to be shown in a very particular way. So we even played 70 millimeter, we played IMAX 70 millimeter for the first time in my career. I've never worked on a 70 mil IMAX film before. We worked on a couple 70 millimeter films for Tarantino and even for Christopher Nolan's last film. But that kind of championship from a filmmaker, I think, is really important, because not only does it create an audience and get audiences to come to the theater, but it, in a weird way, and I hope this part's not recorded, but it forces a studio to not be able to do other things with their films. And so as an exhibitor, we obviously love that, but it also means that we can also play out a film the best way that we can on the exhibition side versus a studio making a decision that's best for the larger studio. So if you look at Universal, NBC's got 18 different channels in which they could promote that movie, but because it was so theatrical and because he had that love of cinema, it created this sort of insular theatrical experience for a film that maybe wouldn't have had that otherwise. It's also 3.5 hours, so I think it also created a experience again in a theater that you can't really replicate at home, because you're likely going to get up in those 3 hours if you're sitting at home watching this movie.
Do people go and see it because of Barbie? Because I think
honestly, like
that's the part.
Barbie,
it's the part
no, but
my
legitimately,
17-year-old kid went to see first Barbie, which was fine. He was like, but now I got to go see Oppenheimer, and I was like, you're gonna like. I just, there's a whole new audience that went.
The best thing that could have happened to Oppenheimer was being dated on the same day as Barbie. It got the best marketing it could have gotten, and again, this is stuff you can't make up or you can't guess that it's going to happen. It just happens. I'll never forget. I saw this one video of this Instagram this Instagram influencer that I follow, and he has this guy in Britain who's like a Disney fan, and he was like loved Barbie, and he's like, everyone told me that Oppenheimer was like Barbie, so I went to Oppenheimer, and what the hell did I just watch? And his boyfriend's just standing behind him, being like, the lunacy of your insanity thinking that Barbie and Oppenheimer were the same. Like, I'm so embarrassed for you. But it's the funniest video. Actually, his name's Max. I can't remember his last name, Max Beagle or something. It's the funniest video because he's just like, everyone was telling me it's the same movie, and I can't believe what I just watched. And just the lunacy of not knowing who Oppenheimer is hilarious. But so I think that like filmmakers really championing the experience, I think, is very important, because it forces the studios in a lot of hands. It forces their hands to create the truly a theatrical experience, which is very important. But the other piece of it, your question of film circuit for us is like a delicate balance of again, there are a lot of films that unfortunately aren't going to make it in certain communities, and that's why film circuit was created. And we want to still be able to harness that, because we know, just based on our shareholders and the experience and sort of what we go through as a business perspective for Cineplex, we can't offer those films in all of those locations. We just know that it's not going to happen, or studios don't have, like, hilariously the same print counts for some films as others. I know prints don't exist anymore, but studios still use that as a barometer. They only want certain number of film or number of theaters playing their film so that their per screen average is whatever, like, still high enough that for their ancillaries, for other reasons, for lots of reasons, that's why they do it. So they still cap our print counts. So a lot of the times it's not even our fault necessarily that we can't play it in another location. So film circuit's very important for that, because it's going to give audiences that wouldn't otherwise have that audience or have that film available to be able to watch the film. So we love film circuit, but it is a delicate balance of where those are and where those communities actually are. But knowing that we're as large as we are, and Cineplex is obviously Canada's largest exhibitor, it's sort of part of our duty as the largest Canadian exhibitor to be able to harness these things, film festivals, film circuit, all of those things. It's part of our responsibility to support Canadian communities. It's why the Galaxy was built in the first place, and why Ellis went and built those Galaxy theaters in small towns that didn't have theaters before. So
back to Cindy Morris and Ken
Yeah,
Crew
exactly.
days. And you use the word duty and responsibility, which I can appreciate, but I also really believe that from when I used to meet with Ellis, he wanted to. It was pride
Oh, absolutely.
of, like,
That's literally, it's why Galaxies
Yeah.
were built.
Yeah.
When he left Cineplex originally and created Galaxy with Onyx, it was created because it was created for communities in which didn't have a large multiplex. So, they're all 10plexes. Every single Galaxy across the country is a 10plex because he wanted to build a theater that was big enough to play the big movies, but also serve the community in which it was in. They were very much community-driven theaters in small towns, which those small towns are not so small anymore, but that's legitimately why they were built in the first place.
So thank you, Film Circuit. We may have already touched on this, but I just want to ask a little bit. How is Telefilm supporting theater recovery? The lineups at the Canadian film festivals that I've been looking at, Atlantic, St. John's is just coming out, obviously Sudbury, Vancouver, Calgary, and TIFF, has been really, really strong. Some of the festivals are playing less films, but I feel like the quality, even though we were in a pandemic, and now in a writer's strike and a SAG strike, but some of the films have been phenomenal. Not saying that some haven't, I just haven't been able to see all of them. How has Telefilm changed how they're helping to fund filmmakers and or festivals in an effort to bring people back?
Thank you for that. I think over the last probably 4 years, Telefilm has gone through a true modernization of how we work with the industry, how we even make our selections in terms of, content. So our vision, our purpose around funding feature films is access and excellence, that the two have to exist and should exist at the same time. So I think it's allowed us to better support creators who have been around a long time that we just haven't supported in the way we should. Really cultivating and working with the Indigenous Screen Office, cultivating Indigenous stories that are spectacular. I mean, last year when you look at some of the films that were highly successful, you had Brother, you had I Like Movies, and I'm looking at Tash for Shelley Nero's, was it Shelley's? Yeah, Cafe Daughter this year. It's just incredible in terms of the stories that we get to be a part of. I think the other thing that we're really working on is how do we actually ensure that when people are applying to us, that their stories, they're prepared to be accountable and partner to tell the story that needs to be told, or to take a step back and allow the people that should be maybe leading that conversation and leading that story to take the story. And that's just made it even better. The content is so much stronger that's going out. And I think parallel to that, Telefilm is, I think, unique because we finance every single part of the ecosystem and therefore every single part of a film's journey, from talent development through our training support initiatives, some we do with WIFT and others, to development, to production, to the marketing of the films, to flying people to get to international, to the pavilions. Like, we really do it all. And I think the other place that we leaned in, thanks to the government, and we're still trying to stay present, is supporting the actual exhibitors themselves. And that's been a big part of the work that I've done over the last 2 years, is build a relationship, because Telefilm didn't have a real relationship. We did a bit with Cineplex, but even with Cineplex, we weren't working hand in hand. We always put the distributor in between. And I think that's been a giant transformation for Telefilm to sit at a table with everybody around the table to really get a sense of where we need to play a role. We never want to be like the hammer, but we want to be the incentive to make sure people are talking. We finance like 90 films a year, and it breaks my heart that people can't see these films. So my job is to be the champion and the promoter of everybody wanting to see films, but also films to find their audience. So I think that we do other things, but the goal is that we make films, we want people to see them. It's not about us making money. It's about us hearing people say, oh my God, I saw this film. I didn't even know it was Canadian. But now I just want to say, I'm so glad it's Canadian. I want to change it. I don't want people to go, I'm so shocked that was a Canadian film. We make kick-ass amazing films. So stop being sorry, people, seriously.
I know, it's so true.
It's very Canadian of us, though.
I know,
Very,
I know.
very. And I know from when I would travel around, as equally as gratifying meeting the audiences, the filmmakers, when I would take a director or a producer on the road and being able to watch the film with that audience and just being so engaged, I just remember traveling with Mike McGowan all the time because he literally makes film circuit movies. And just like loving, he would I want to go as many places as I can, deep and meta going on the road. Like they truly loved meeting the audiences that were taking the time to come and see their films. So there is, and this is even pre-pandemic, there's an argument that the relevance and the importance of film festivals was dwindling. And this is, as I say, before the pandemic. They're facing a bit of an identity crisis. The industry was being saturated with content. Things were going to SVOD either faster or right away. And there was a real sense of instability, which there, arguably still is. Content was getting easier to get in Canada and elsewhere. And we saw massive changes in distribution models, which we're still seeing a little bit. What do you think, I know this is a very big and loaded question, but what do you think is the current landscape and where do you see us going in the next 2 to 3 years?
Gurbani.
Well, Telefilm will fund more festivals, right?
We're gonna continue to fund festivals. I don't know. I'm excited about all the different ways in. I'm not against the streamers. I actually, thanks to the streamers, think I have 2 kids that will watch films in all languages that are able to go down a rabbit hole of discovering creators that they never saw before, but they still will go to a cinema to see films. Now, my son does watch films on his telephone, and that's now unacceptable, and he can't do it in front of me. But I do, I feel like there's a certain point where we need to meet audiences where they're at, and then I think it is festivals, it's special events. I do think it is expensive. It's expensive to go out. It's expensive to bring your family out. And those mid-range films sometimes are the hardest, and Canadian cinema often will sort of sit in that wonderful, mid-range place. And we don't have a lot of marketing money. We can't compete with a Marvel or others, so we rely on word of mouth. We rely on festivals. We just rely on kind of all of you to talk about it. But cinema will stay. Yesterday when I was, sitting at this industry panel, and they were all saying, I'm the film commissioner. I'm responsible for film. Even though you all do TV too, let's be clear that the word film resonates and sticks everywhere. It's the National Film Board. We're Telefilm Canada. And I don't think any of that will go away. Cinema for me, has been here for more than 100 years. You can talk about your picture pioneer stuff. I mean, it's been around for a long time, and I think every time they think it's going to go away, somebody just comes up with some great moment of cinema that we all want to get out and see, even if it's Taylor Swift. If Taylor Swift gets people to go out and come back, I'm okay, but could you maybe show a little Canadian short in front of it, Gurbani? Like a
we'll chat.
Something?
Yeah, we'll chat. No, but I think that, I to your point, the streamers are not the enemy. I really don't think that they are. I think we're competing for time more than anything else. And it really just takes that one time going back to the theater to realize how much you loved it and how much you missed it. And so that's, I think, a piece that we've struggled with, and that's why I think film festivals potentially have hurt. It's obviously there's lack of money, and that's always going to be an issue, but it's about finding new ways to do it. Ultimately, I mean, theaters, we thought DVDs, or what was before DVDs?
VHS?
VHS, thank you. We all thought that VHS would kill, sorry. I was around for VHSs, I swear. But no, we all thought that cinema was going to be dead with VHS. We thought it would be dead with DVDs. We thought it would be dead with Blu-rays. We thought it would be dead with 3D TVs. There's all these things that cinema has been up against and has overcome all of those things. I'm not so naive to say that cinema is just going to always be here and we don't have to work at it, because obviously we do, but I don't think it's as scary as we all think it is. I think the streamers, while they exist, and they were going to have the same impact they had on cinema of what they did in COVID regardless. All COVID did, in my opinion, was speed up the process of what was going to happen anyways. Because it happened with DVDs, it happened with Blu-rays, it happened with VHSs. It happened with all those things, and cinema still prevailed because people still liked coming back. And again, it's just finding other ways to get them to come back, or finding content that they can't watch at home, or creating an experience that you can't replicate, whatever it may be. But the streamers are not a threat to ruin our business. We just have to find a way to work with them and coexist in the same way that we coexist with Blu-rays and DVDs and VHS and Betamax or whatever was
delight
before
and
that.
surprises in
I don't know.
Providing delight and surprises in theaters.
Exactly. Just finding things.
Forgot laser discs.
That's gonna
And
be like
Laserdisc,
that's gonna
thank
be
you, that
like
was
the
the
one
word,
thing that everyone's gonna take away. Cineplex, surprise and delight.
That should be your new tagline.
Yeah, seriously.
We provide.
Yeah.
Hashtag Sudbury.
You heard it here first.
Fran, I know that you were at the screening last night. Gurbani and I just got in, but there was a fantastic screening of Boy in the Woods. 4 theaters, 700 people. I'm seeing a lot of faces nodding. You were obviously there. I mean, these, from what I remember, these are pre-pandemic numbers. I mean, I've been coming up here for over 20 years, and you know, nothing better than seeing everybody come out of one theater and then, with no disrespect, like mice to the next line, into the next theater, maybe out to the tent for a quick break, and then into the theater, and then like just shuffle along to each theater to every movie. So it's great to hear such a great screening last night. I saw some of you at the reception afterwards. Okay, yeah. So festivals have traditionally played a vital role in the promotion of these films, which we're just talking about. What are you hearing from the film, because I know you've been traveling a little bit with festivals, what are you hearing from the filmmaker and the producer and distributor side versus the audience side of being back in theaters and seeing these numbers come back? What is their perspective on this?
I mean, I think as you saw last night when you saw Rebecca come out, to have worked on a film for as long as she worked on that film, to present it here where it was shot. I mean, I can't imagine the nerves that that creators have, because she's presenting kind of back to you in a lot of ways. But nothing, every time, and you've had this with our filmmakers, there is no greater experience for them to actually be live with an audience and see, where things land. Oh my God, why'd they laugh there? I mean, that's for me the exciting part. I think, even, the distributors, I was talking earlier today, the distributors are having a tough go at it, because they used to be able to rely on theatrical as a bigger part of their revenue stream, and that doesn't exist as much in the same way. I think it's reiterating, it's reinventing itself. But it was a good TIFF, for them. And the programming here in Sudbury is amazing, because you see the strong lineup of Canadian content that is equally as good as the other content that's out there.
Or better.
Or often better. The one thing, and this is not even really answer your question, but I spent a lot of time in the world of promotion. So even though I realize you read my old bio, but that's fine. I still do all of that, and I just added more. But the adding more is promoting both nationally and internationally. And what I love the most about Canada, as I go out and I sell Canada, is we are world cinema. Everything we do, we represent. And on top of that, the strength of our, in particular, having the ISO and the strength of our Indigenous creators right now, we are uniquely positioned in the world to just show change. And we're financing films in all languages, so that, Cineplex does a lot of screenings in different, to communities in different languages. Man, no one's doing it the way that we're doing it in Canada. And I think that's what we have to start talking about. We have to start talking about what Canada does differently, and we do it really well and better than so many other places. And that's what the film festivals, the film circuits, all of you take a chance. You come in here and you're like, yeah, I'm going to support that creator. So, I mean, I'm always humbled when I get to see people that care as much about cinema as I do, you do, you do.
Were you gonna add to that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think there's just the point of what we do differently. I think Canada also has a community that no other country has because of the multiculturalness of Canada. And so it's not just about, what Canada does and what Canada produces, but it's how we also showcase our own communities, because most people are from somewhere else. And it's really cool also to see of just how that has then bled into the way that, cinema is consumed here. Even with international product, where people who just love movies are going and watching like Bollywood films or Chinese films or Mandarin films. It doesn't matter because they just want to watch good movies. And that's, I think, part of why Canada is very different, because of the fabric of how we're made up. We bring Bollywood films like, Pathan or Jawan, but then a Canadian who's 18th generation Canadian will just go watch it because it's a fun, cool movie and other people are talking about it. And that's, I think, a cool experience of why Canada's different in the way that we consume content and the way we consume cinema than our counterparts internationally.
Yeah, we are still our own worst enemy at times. We have to see success outside of Canada before we want to embrace it. It's
For sure.
Oh, that did really well. Oh, okay.
Yeah, now I'll go watch it.
And that's
Yeah.
Canadian, by the way.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, oh, I'm not really sure I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we were so bad at embracing how great we are at
Well,
times.
the
It's that
Canadian
humble
Media
story.
Fund made that trailer.
Yeah.
It was just before COVID, I want to say, and they made that trailer of it was the idea of did you know all this was Canadian? And it was a really
Yeah.
It was a
With
really
Christopher- That was the one with Christopher Plummer.
yeah,
was
where
doing
he was
it?
the
Yeah.
voiceover, and he was like, "Did you know?" And it was just about all these beats of
So
massive
good.
Canadian films or actors that are from here that just pieced it together. It was I think they had a 30-second and a 2-minute piece.
Alex
it was
Trebek, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex Trebek, Nora
Yeah.
Schmer. I can go through a whole list of.
Yeah.
But it was a really powerful piece of, and I think and the point of it really was stop saying sorry and stop being and it's Canadian. Be proud that it's Canadian.
Absolutely. I miss the days of Blockbuster. I used to go in and I'd pick up a film when there was people around me, almost always Canadian. Once in a while international, and I'd pick it up and be like, oh, should I rent this again? Oh my God, it's so good. Oh, I've already seen it 3 times. I'll watch something else. And I walk away and then I turn around and guaranteed somebody like, what film is she talking about? Maybe
They had
and I'd be like,
VHSs there, right?
what's that?
They sold VHSs there, right?
Yeah. Hey, I worked in Video 99. I had a Betamax, so when they went out, the owner of the store was like, Karen, you can take any Betamax you want. And I recently donated that machine to the Film Reference Library. And
Amazing.
And my dad thought we were revolutioning. We're going to be the house with the Betamax. And then all my friends were like, what the hell is that? But it was superior quality than VHS. And it cost more money at the time. Just before I go on, does anybody have any questions for? Yes, we had a gentleman over here. I'll do this.
Look.
Hi. Actually, it's as much a comment, I think, because first of all, I think you guys are amazing, and the point that you've come to, I think, the term I would use is Canada, the Canadian brand. And when you think of the implications of that, and we've got a movie that would knock that out of the park. So to have an epic Canadian movie that does that, to set the stage, because I look at things more from the behavioral and from an audience perspective, and we're all products of it. And so that stage of the first movie we saw, I go back a long way, so I've been watching movies, and then the fact that the different generations, when they come in, they have their own way of doing it. But you cannot, as we're discussing here, you cannot replace that out-of-home, with your friends experience. The form factor of this is fine, you can get into it, but it's not the same as watching it on your big screen. Popcorn is not a question. I stopped going, I would go to 2 to 3 movies every week. I'm a perfect behavioral market test of one, of how come I'm not back yet. COVID came in and knocked the crap out of all of us, changed all of our behavior patterns. And then curiously, the streamers came in, and of course now you can binge watch. Then now we discover binge watching. That's amazing. It's still not the same, and I'm waiting for an incentive, and it's my own behavior. It's my own behavior pattern of struggling. I finally went into Cineplex. I haven't been in there for a couple of years, and I'm screaming down, I've got to start my habit. My habit, I got out of the habit. I need to get back into the habit.
For sure.
So you see the point. And so the question is, how do you foster that perspective? And all of the things, and all those different elements, all the different grades of the movies, and some of the best movies we've ever seen are those mid-grade movies, you know? So that's an input, that's just for the discussion.
For sure. I think there's a little bit of to your point, it's changing the behavior and getting you to go that first time. Because I think even for me, I was very COVID cautious. I have, compromised people around me in my household. And so I was like, you know what, I need to be extra cautious. And so working at a cinema chain, it took me a long time to go back to the theater and be comfortable being in the theater. And so there is a large community of people who we know have not gone back, who were avid moviegoers before, who are exactly like yourself. Exactly. Exactly, and to be honest, I don't know if we've found what that exact excuse is. Whether it's a film festival, whether it's a film that you're dying to watch, whether it's a filmmaker, whether it's the lack of I'm bored of binge watching or whatever that may be. But we found a lot of I'm not saying that this is why you're going to go back to the theater, but we found a lot of things of again going back that first time sort of breaks the seal or rips the Band-Aid off, and then you realize this isn't so terrible, this isn't so scary. I'm not going to get COVID in the theater, whatever it may be. We had actually very low traces of COVID actually contracted at a theater, or that we can absolutely prove that we're contracted at a theater. Obviously, there was a lot of, you don't really know where you got it kind of thing. But it's a horror movie, I think, is actually the best experience of it. Because there are people who love horror films, but you don't want to actually, at least from our perspective, you don't want to be scared shitless in your own house by yourself. You know what I mean? Because that's, I feel like, another level of being scared.
So true.
Because you're by yourself and you're like, wait, is this going to happen to me or whatever? That I think is a different level. And so we did a lot of research and a lot of market testing, and we found that a lot of people that came back to the theater to watch a horror film because it was something they were not doing at all when they were at home. Because of those reasons, was the ripping off the Band-Aid and getting them to come back. Was it, the Maverick of the world of, 20 years later and having this epic film that did all this business and sat in theaters for so long, got people to come back more than once. Karen went back 4 times. It's that kind of, to your point, changing the behavior of something you're not doing at home. And it's finding out what that thing is for each individual person, and it's not a universal thing, as much as I'm saying go to watch a horror movie in theaters. You might not be a horror fan, but that was just one example of changing somebody's behavior of something they weren't doing at home and something they weren't comfortable with doing at home.
There's another context to all of this, which is today. In terms of the content, because you make a really good point with the horror, because you want distraction from today. The circumstances with global warming, with all the political upheaval and so on and so forth. So the content that best captures that in terms of the formula that I'm creating for our movie is Canadian brand, unapologetic, period. Not questions asked. We're not asking. And our grasp of world circumstances. And so that formula of something that presents content that speaks to people where they live, with the stress, the amount of stress that's in the environment and what people have to contact, that's where entertainment elevates and reflects reality to us in a way that's meaningful. And that's where I think the opportunity is stellar.
I mean, that's all the reason to go back. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say thank you for those comments. It's good.
Yeah. But I think, because Gurbani, we were talking about this last night, you just need to go back once, and then you're like, oh. Like, I went to see Tenet when it came out, because I knew that was a film like Inception. I can't see this on my screen. I'm going to be so confused already. And then I came out of the theater being like, I think I watched the entire movie like this.
You need to talk to somebody about it after.
I did. I had to
Even a random
go
person
for
in
a
the theater.
drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously. I had to have a Guinness and be like, what
did I just watch?
What did I just watch? I'm so but I knew that that's a movie obviously, that you want to see on the big screen. And so I think there are a lot of people like you still. That's why I mentioned earlier comedy and thriller. Like those are the two best genres, I think, outside of the Marvels and those big films, that you really want to see in an audience because you feed off of each other's energy. And I do think, if it's a numbers, if it's a COVID thing, go in the 12 o'clock screening on a Thursday or Monday. Like when's the quietest? I know you probably don't want to admit this, but when's the quietest?
Mondays and Wednesdays.
There you go. Go in the afternoon on a Monday or Wednesday when there might be 4 people, and have that experience and remind yourself of what you love about seeing films in theaters. We've got another question over here.
It's not so much, well, maybe it is a question. I was wondering, we're all talking and skirting all around the same conversation that the world's evolved since COVID. My first time going back into a theater for COVID, I had to pick my seats before. I had to buy it online, and it was minimal everything. And again, culturally, a lot of people now do not have cable per se, so they're streaming everything. So they've got every app under the world for streaming to watch. So my question is primarily to Cineplex and possibly Telefilm as well. Is there some way that a mass or a joint venture of advertising could be put out on the television end of it, because it's primarily seniors that stay home and watch a Jeopardy and whatever, and the Weather Channel and whatever. And with the film circuits, it tends to be more the older group that begin to watch our films before they, bring their grandchildren and their children in. And I'm wondering if there could be a commercial that could be put out there stating that they don't have to wait in line, they don't have to pick their seat, some mass advertising that could be put out and say, outside of Marvel, and, show whatever, and Britney Spears or whoever, even an old film to a new film, just to bring all cultures back, because, the parents might be watching it, but the grandchildren are there, they're being influenced by public television as well, right?
I think
For
we
sure.
both
Is there
did
some
ads,
kind of-
right? We both did return to cinema ads.
Yeah, we did do a full return to cinema campaign when we first reopened post-COVID. And our take on it was, again, sort of that community building that we talked about. And it really was about the community. So we actually had our GMs of our buildings be the ones to communicate with their guests that were coming back to cinema. So we had, emails go out and things like that from the actual GMs of the buildings to say, you used to visit Sudbury or Silver City Sudbury. We'd love to welcome you back, and here's what's playing, and here's some offers for you, whatever it may be. We didn't do a national campaign like you're suggesting of things on TV and things like that, to be fully frank, because of budget. But it's a good point of the way that we consume content outside of a theater has changed, and the way that we market, therefore, then has to change as well, obviously. But I know that Telefilm did a very large campaign about, going back to cinema and cinemas being reopened, that we definitely benefited from.
And we did radio, so we did less television because we couldn't afford it. We did a lot of radio. Because, again, we think that there are I listen to the radio every single day. It's how I get my news, because I can't get on Facebook. But I mean, even before that. I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but I think the other place we all have an opportunity is through the changes to the CRTC. I think that within that, as we negotiate with all the broadcasters, including the streamers, one of the questions is about, audience engagement. And I think within that, some of what I heard today around the film circuits, I do believe that people still want to be promoted to on television, on platforms. I think that there should be a PSA, like a kind of a free moment for all Canadian films to have their moment to put their trailer on television and on other places that is subsidized by the government, so that it's not out of the pockets of anyone else, because that's how it works, right? That's like my kids want to see things because it got pushed to them wherever it is, and that's what we don't have. So that's what Telefilm's going to, the CEO of Telefilm is going to, I don't know if Alice is doing, but it's going to present in front of the CRTC in November, and that's part of kind of what I'm trying to say.
I know we've got 2 more questions. You had questions, gentlemen, right? Oh, you're good. Okay, one more. Just on that note, I think, Rita, you were asking, though, you were hoping for messaging a commercial during Jeopardy, because literally we talked
To
about this
encourage
last night.
people back,
I
yeah.
can't call my mom between 7:30 and 8. But a commercial during Jeopardy that I think what you were asking for, that says you can pre-book your seats, because that's one of the things that people love to think about TIFF this year, is you booked your seats, so you didn't have to be there 2 hours in advance to make sure you got your favorite seat. You booked your seats, except for in the TIFF building. And I think people, I know myself, I loved knowing exactly where I was going. So you're saying it's more the knowledge of letting people
And there's also
know.
like a lot of conveniences that have come out of COVID.
Yeah.
As much as we had to change the way that our buildings function because of COVID, there's also a lot of conveniences that came out of that. You can get in-seat service. You don't even have to wait in line for concessions. You can pre-order it before you get to the cinema. Like you can pick your seat. You can show up. You don't have to watch all the ads if you don't want to. Like there are conveniences that came out of COVID that we also need to lean into a little bit more.
Yeah, and
So
push
those
that
ads-
to the
yeah.
audiences to know they're there.